What's that thing?
Oh, it's a BlackBerry smartphone. Circa 2012. Old Reliable I used to call her.
This thing is solid. And it still boots up. But why is it buzzing?
It's called vibrate mode. It's how you'd identify yourself in public as not being an asshole. Ringtone, which was the opposite of vibrate mode, opened our eyes to how truly overpopulated we were with assholes. Pardon the foul language.
That's okay. Ever since Fox bought the FCC, I hear it all the time. Wow, this phone is so easy to use, and perfect for communicating. Did it come out of a secret government lab?
No, it came from a Canadian company named RIM. RIM peaked around 2009, but then, unfortunately, lost to the Great Stupification around 2013.
You mean when people no longer understood that the purpose of language is communication?
Exactly. Communication had vanished, and language became something completely undecipherable, but sprayed all over every form of media like vandalized art.
Isn't that when that Facebook thing was really popular? We learned about it in school.
Correct. Same with things like University of Phoenix Online and Capella University.
Aren't those the places that email diplomas?
Yes, usually right after your check cleared, but then soon they sent only expired Olive Garden coupons. Their slogans were "Get an A++ in everything by yesterday LOL. And we were good enough.
My gym teacher started at Hot Tropic, but then finished later that day at a mobile station, on a Slim Jim scholarship. When did this all happen?
It was around May 2012. Facebook went public on something called NASDAQ. It was a failure and suddenly NASDAQ was poison. The term, Facebook effect, was coined for when you don't win all the time.
You mean reality?
Yes. It was hysteria. Nobody listed with NASDAQ again and Facebook jumped from one stock exchange to another hoping that would cause its stock price to rise. Obviously it never did. Oh, and we are still paying for all the SEC, and FTC, and DEA investigations today. That became the fate of Social Security, and why we sold the USS Ronald Reagan to North Korea, and sold Mount Rushmore to the Soviet Union version 2.0. We offered them the Grand Canyon and our half of Niagara Falls, but they insisted on Rushmore. They said Teddy Roosevelt had Stalin's mustache and Thomas Jefferson was the spit-in image of Catherine the Great. Obama could not have agreed more, and in 2018 handed it over after he changed Lincoln to look like himself.
Wait, 2018? I thought the Constitution limited presidents to 2 terms.
Obama auctioned the Constitution on eBay in 2015.
Were people really that stupid?
Stupider. That's why it was called the Great Stupification. Facebook and Twitter.
What's Twitter? Is it something that makes twits?
Mostly, but useful only if your city was being bummed into rubble and it was the only way to communicate. But, otherwise just a waste of bandwidth, and unnecessary wear on keyboards, touch screens, and segments of the mind critical to cognition, hygiene, and control of bodily functions.
Did the Great Stupification trigger the Great Illiteracy?
Yes. By 2015, 9.9 out of every 10 people could not read, or write, at all. For example, OMGR2LOL is not writing. As you can tell, it is incoherent.
Why would people make up words when there are gigantic dictionaries full of them already? Isn't it actually tougher to communicate using unfamiliar terms? Doesn't fabricating language in fact defeat the purpose of communication?
Well, the predominant theory is this. Teenagers started it all, but that's to be expected because between the ages of 12 and 18, humans lack any rationality and logic whatsoever. It's a fact of human psychology.
But how did kids result in destroying an entire language? Were they recruited like Hitler Youth?
We thought that at first. All the signs pointed to it, especially the armbands and rallies and Mel Gibson's renewed popularity. But it was actually due to a phenomenon known as parental befriending. You see, and likely because of their own low self-esteem and neuroses, parents stopped actually parenting and instead only socialized with and eventually just appeased their offspring. No longer did they view their children as sons and daughters. Rather, And because stupidity was running amok, parents viewed their children as extra friends who they, well, just happened to feed and live with. With this deranged logic, a 9-month investment produced lifelong friends, and friends that live longer than cats, and are only slightly less personable than houseplants. Plus it gave them an excuse to buy more crap from Walmart, like BFF on board LOL maternity wear and overpriced strollers made in China, with lead-based teething rings, asbestos upholstery, and mercury just for the hell of it because it was made in China.
So because they fed them, isn't that like paying someone to be your friend?
That's exactly what it is. But it didn't end there. The parents were so terrified of their children not wanting to be their friends that they threw all kinds of money and gifts at them. Suddenly, 13-year-old girls had diamond-encrusted phones with $500 a month bills. 15-year-old boys were given Xboxes, Wiis, PlayStations, thousands of dollars worth of games that went unopened. Birthdays, Christmas, Mother's Day, Labor Day, Diwali, Boxer Rebellion Week, Tuesday. It didn't matter. Any excuse to throw more expensive crap at their living greats. These were also the parents who willingly signed ludicrous adjustable rate mortgages, so if the friendship maintenance gifts had not financially ruined them, the adjustable rate mortgages would have.
Would have.
Yes, it was also the year when Congress passed the Nobody Loses Act, which ushered out capitalism and ushered in nannyism.
Is that why all the currency has pictures of storks instead of founding fathers and presidents?
No, that's because in 2014 Congress bailed out Vlasic Pickles.
Once in a YouTube video we watched in history class, I saw what must have been a 14-year-old boy with $10,000 worth of musical equipment in his room. He was a horrible player and tried to be funny with toilet humor, but he bombed and was really just pathetic. Now I know how he got that stuff. His grown-up friends who conceived him. Right?
Yes, and I know the video. That twit became the mayor of San Francisco and then lieutenant governor of California. He hasn't changed. Still lives at home too.
So how does parental befriending relate to the great stupification and the great illiteracy?
It's simple, the great infancy. Parents began behaving like their offspring friends. They adopted their clothing, customs, rituals, and feeble attempts at communication with what looks more like runes than letters and words. The parents didn't know what THX, or OEFL, or TTYL meant. But they didn't care because their friends were doing it and that's all that mattered. And ironically, the parents were using the same overpriced yet shoddy gear they spent thousands on for their byproduct pals to begin with, thus sowing the seeds of linguistic destruction. I knew many such types, and all very, very creepy. Fortunately, now they have to register where they live. Sorta like sex offenders.
Sounds like the turn of the century really sucked.
Sure did. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, you'd get an "I'm about to eat Chinese food LOL" text message from somebody at the same restaurant and at the same table.
Is that what started the Great Strangulation?
Yes, 8 out of every 10 people habitually sent gratuitous nonsense. Text messages, instant messages, emails, phone calls, Morse code, semaphore. You name it. Imagine you received letters in the mail today, one with just the word "hi," and one rambling with, "waiting to pee at Pat's game, where are you?" using the letters R and U, and the number 2. And no punctuation. How would you react?
I would assume people belonging in insane asylums sent them, and therefore be fearful of my personal safety since they knew where I lived. And now I understand how the Great Strangulation caused the end of both the Great Stupification and the Great Illiteracy.
Precisely. We strangled our way out of it. And when we got tired of strangling, we motivated ourselves to keep strangling by strangling some more.
What about the Great Innumeracy?
Well, I can't recall much, but by 0217, 11 out of every 10 people had no idea whatsoever how to use numbers. Get it?
1. Get it?